than one weight loss plan just to fail 2 weeks or 2 days in? Has this made you think you're weak or you have a character defect, or even worse, maybe that there's something inherently wrong with you? Have you given up and figured, you know what, you're just doomed to be heavier than you want to be for the rest of your life? Well, if you have, then you're in the right place to hear this inspiring story of transformation. Now, I'm so excited about this because the research suggests that roughly 80% of people who shed weight, any significant portion of their body weight, do not maintain that to any degree for even up to 12 months. And according to one meta-analysis, the studies showed that dieters regain on average more than half of what they lose within 2 years. Welcome everyone to our first interview for May Transformation Month. My name is Alicia McPeak, and I'm so happy that you're here. If you're here on my YouTube channel, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so we know that this is the kind of conversation you would like to have more of. And if you are here, hello to all those here live on Facebook. Make sure that you drop some love below for Rowan Brouillet, who is our guest. Nice big red heart would be great. Now, I'm excited to share with you guys my daughter. My daughter here is Rowan Brouillet. She has lost over 80 pounds and completely transformed her relationship with food. She's here to share her story, her struggles, and the gifts and knowledge and tools that she's learned along the way. Well, welcome, my sweet daughter, and Rowan.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So excited that you're here.
Me too.
Okay, so I'm just going to put up really quick. I just want everybody to, even before we start, I just want to share your before and after picture to get started here. You guys take a look at this. So I'm going to ask you in a second, Rowan, what you think of when you see those two pictures, okay? What a difference. Absolutely inspiring. So Rowan, just to get started, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, about your background, what you do for a living, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay, well, so I am 24 years old. I am a mother to a beautiful, almost 3-year-old boy. I'm a wedding photographer, and honestly, and that's pretty much the gist of me. I love photography, and anytime I'm not working, I just love to spend my time with my son and family, you know, relaxing. So,
okay, so let's go on and get into it. First of all, how far back do you remember struggling with eating and your weight?
I started struggling with it even when I was, I'd say, middle school. You know, kids can be a little cruel. So I always remember feeling like I was a little heavier, even though I wasn't necessarily on the heavier side, but kids would point out, you know, I had a stomach compared to some of the other little kids around. So I remember probably about 5th or 6th grade being the first time I really started to think about weight on myself.
What about like with eating, your relationship with food? When did that start?
That, you know, I don't remember the exact pinpoint, but I do remember coming home from school some days and getting all the food I could and sitting in front of the TV, just like binge and eat, you know. So I definitely think there was always a little bit of a struggle there. And I do believe, based on what you have shared with me in the past too, I've always been a little bit of a pickier eater as a child. So I know that I always struggled with wanting to get like the goods and right kind of foods in my diet.
Right. And I think you even shared with me that it was as far back as elementary school.
Yeah.
And that you, in your relationship, was not that just that you binged, but that you actually used food as comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely found comfort. And, you know, I didn't recognize that at the time. It wasn't, you know, like this, thought process, like, oh, this is comforting. But I definitely remember having a bad day and wanting a cupcake, you know, or things like that, even as far back as late elementary, middle school, and early middle school.
Right. And who on here hasn't thought of that? You know why? Because sugar releases dopamine and it works. And so it's an easy way to make ourselves feel better temporarily.
Absolutely.
So I'll keep going back to it because it does work. So tell me about how you felt in regards to your siblings.
So I have 2 beautiful older sisters who have always been on the petite side. So being the youngest daughter, and also, even though this is kind of silly, they were also these gorgeous blonde, you know, what I would consider, you know, typical beauties. So me being a little bit different, a little bit more soft around the edges, that was always a tough comparison, because even though we don't want to compare ourselves, we definitely do, especially to the people that are around us. So one of my sisters is a little bit on the shorter side and very petite, and the other one was always very lean. So comparing my body type, definitely that happened quite a bit as I was growing up.
And I just want to
So
say, as a mom, I'm going to tell him myself here because she's probably not going to tell on me. One time I said something to her about being softer, and I got to tell you guys, she's never been overweight, right? She was just made different, and I actually thought I was saying something positive to her, but of course, it completely had the opposite effect. She's always had a beautiful body, little tiny waist. I mean, she's just been beautiful, but she couldn't see it that way. And I just think it's interesting. So this is a kind of a different, interesting conversation because I've had part of your experience with you. It's been really interesting to see the struggles that you had. And, I'm going to tell you also, guys, from being a mother, I'm a personal trainer, a nutrition coach. I was always concerned about my weight. And I don't think I handled it well as a mom for my daughters. I don't think I represented or even knew to represent a positive body image or what that looked like. And, they've had to figure that out on their own because I don't think I did it for them. So
we're all constantly learning about that, though.
Yeah.
We can only do so much unless we know, until we know. And then once we know, we do better.
See how kind she is. Okay. So let's talk about the trajectory. When you were in high school, we're going to talk weight. So how much did you weigh in high school?
Roughly 115 to 125, somewhere in that fluctuation.
Okay.
So definitely not overweight, I'm about 5'2", 5'3", so I don't know what's considered overweight in a doctor's eyes, but I would say pretty standard.
Well, that was good. And then when you got engaged?
Yeah, still around 125, 130, 135, somewhere in that range.
Right. A little heavier than you were used to being. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Still not considered overweight at all.
No, definitely not. I would consider that not overweight. But I definitely was starting an incline, like slowly inclining in weight gain. And that was, that's definitely difficult whenever you see your body changing as you get older when you're not used to it.
Yeah. And then you already struggled with body image. Were you
Yes.
still using food? And what was your experience with food from, let's say, middle school when you started thinking about weight till the time you got engaged? What was your experience around food?
Well, there was a bunch of, like those yo-yo diets or lots of starting a new diet, making it work, and then, stopping. So those binge tendencies again. And, even though I wasn't super heavy set at those times, the mindset was still there of, oh, I need to lose weight constantly. And I never felt like my body was enough. I definitely always thought that I had weight to lose. So I was constantly trying to lose that weight.
Right.
Through different methods, just all sorts.
Okay, so let's talk about probably, well, I happen to know that you struggled with anxiety from probably the time you were about, what, 6 years old?
6 years old, yeah.
And then now you're an adult, you're married, you're still struggling with anxiety. That ended up taking you on what path?
Yeah, so I had been struggling with anxiety, mostly panic attacks since I was very little. I remember the first one happening when I was 6. And through those struggles, over the course of years, it just kept getting worse and worse. So right after I had moved out around 18, 19 years old, I decided to try finally some antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication because I'd never given it a shot and I thought it was worth a try. And although it was a little helpful for my mental health, in other ways it affected me because I did have a significant weight gain from getting on the medication. And that definitely affected other aspects of my mental health.
So what was the trajectory of weight gain?
I believe it was about 40 pounds in roughly 3 to 4 months. And I hadn't really changed any ways that I had been eating, but I think my body just handled what I had been eating differently.
Now you go from being anxiety ridden and dealing with anxiety and depression and dealing with weight issues and your relationship with food. And now you've gained 40 pounds. Like, what did that do for you? What happened there?
No, that definitely, and at the time, I think I was recently engaged around the time the weight started coming on. So we had gotten engaged in about, I think it was right at the end of February. And then by that summer, I was like, 40 pounds heavier. So it was definitely in that realm. And so trying to plan a wedding and wedding dress shopping and all these things, definitely, that was a really frustrating time period because I just wanted to feel like myself. And I would think back again to my beautiful sister's wedding days, and I would think about how gorgeous they looked on their day. And of course, instantly the comparison would come out. And I wanted to make sure I was looking good on my wedding day. And that became my sole focus.
So the banner on my personal Facebook is still your wedding day picture. So if anybody wants to see what she's talking about, you guys can check that out there and see. And you can see she still wasn't terribly heavy right? But
No,
then over the next year, the antidepressant changed things, right? The
yes.
anti-anxiety antidepressant, what
And I
happened?
did, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, I did get off of them relatively quickly just because it wasn't the right fit. I think medication's a great tool. It just wasn't the right fit. Medication wise, I found a different one that worked better, but that wasn't the right one for me.
But you already gained the weight at this point and you
Yes,
changed
yeah,
things, right? What happened?
yeah. Yeah, so I had gained the weight, and that, I think it was 3 to 4 month period, pretty relatively fast. And I got off the medication, but I think something, and I don't know the exact science, but I think something had just changed. And so weight again just kept coming on, even though I hadn't changed much of how I've been eating. And then eventually find, going back to those roots of like I would find comfort in food, things started to like those binge tendencies started to come back up. And then it just kind of, just kind of kept rolling and going, and my weight just kept going up. And again, I would try the yo-yo diets and I would try to fix it. Like I remember thinking, oh, I could just do a juice fast and I can get this weight off, those typical thoughts we have when we want things instantaneous. So, but of course, nothing ever stuck, and it just kept slowly gaining weight over time.
And after a year, how much weight did you gain?
By the next summer, I was 200 pounds. So I think that's another 30 pounds from then,
So about 70 at that point.
about 70. And then I
I
still
have gone
gained a little
from being
more.
pretty much a petite, feeling like you're overweight, to being truly overweight.
Mhm.
Okay, so this had to add even more to it. So did you find yourself continuing to like stuff and binge and,
Yeah, I mean, as much as I wanted to stop, because I knew, even, weight loss aside, because yes, obviously we all want to be, like we all want to look a certain way. Like, I had those body image issues, but I also wanted to be healthy. I constantly felt like I was unhealthy, and I wanted so desperately to feel good and be comfortable in my own skin and be able to, run or walk and not feel out of breath, like just small things like that. But I didn't want it enough at that point. I still wanted food more. So I just kept eating, kept what felt normal and comfortable, and kept doing those tendencies that I had always had built in.
right? So share with everybody what it's like when you're stuffing and numbing, but you know it, but you don't know it. You care, but you don't care. Like, what's that experience like?
It's so, it's unreal sometimes, because, when you're in the process or in the middle of it, you don't always recognize you're 100% doing it, or at least I didn't. I can recall, like I said, as far back as elementary, middle school, like having a bad day and wanting a sweet thing, and at the time didn't associate that with being an issue of any sort. I just thought like, oh, I've had a rough day. I just want something that's going to be yummy and taste good and whatever. But whenever I would have a bad day, like I distinctly remember when I was pregnant, actually calling you, Mom, because I was gestationally diabetic at the time, and I had a really hard day, and I was crying on the phone to you because I just wanted to eat a cupcake and I couldn't at the time. And not being able to push down whatever those feelings were, like it was really hard, and it was heartbreaking in those moments, because I just wanted what was going to make me feel good. But going through those motions, you don't always recognize you're doing it at the time. So when you're in the middle of it, it feels normal, and it feels like just what you've always known, or at least it did for me.
Mm-hmm. And I want to say that one of my things that I'm passionate about is obviously health, but really mental health associated with addiction, because I think they feed into each other. And truthfully, being addicted to sugar is just like any other addiction, except here's the biggest difference. Everybody around you's eating, and it seems like nobody has a problem with it. It's like even different than gambling, pornography, drugs, even alcohol. Most people can drink normally, and when you can't eat or drink normally, it's really hard when you're around it, and you can't stop eating, right? You can't just not eat. And the
Yeah.
problem is that we are numbing ourselves and stuffing our emotions, and when we give up our drug of choice, now we're confronted with all those things we've been stuffing, right?
Absolutely.
And we don't want to feel it. It feels uncomfortable to feel it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, May 2017. This is about a 3-year journey here, I believe. And you were at your heaviest. I think you told me you gained upwards of 100 pounds total.
Yeah, so that was not quite my heaviest. I still gained a little bit more, but that was like that was kind of the moment when I realized, oh, this is happening. Like, this is my body. This is who I am now. Like, this is where I'm at.
Right. So share with everybody so they can be there with you what it was like when, you had a baby, you had a young, active little boy. What was that like trying to, keep up with him, pick him up? Tell everybody
Yeah.
about
Well, so as I kind of mentioned a little bit before, I was gestationally diabetic when I was pregnant. So I did lose a little bit of weight while I was pregnant, which was, not on purpose. It just because of how I had to eat. So right after I gave birth, I was actually feeling like I was in a good space because I had lost a little bit of weight and I thought I could keep it going. But once, motherhood kind of started and I really started to deal with those struggles, I started to gain weight just a little bit again. And over the course of time again, that's when I started to put on more and more. And honestly, as my son turned into a very active toddler, I didn't realize how much it affected me, not being able to keep up with him. But I was tired. You go from just like normal motherhood fatigue to I can't play with my son. I can't keep up with him. I just want to sit down and watch TV. And that was definitely hard because I wanted more for him because he deserves more. He's an amazing little boy.
So that's really what changed your life. Now, the funny thing is what most people, the pandemic hit and most people started drinking more, eating more, struggling more. You actually took this pandemic and it actually gave you the opportunity to turn your life around. So I'm going to let you share that story.
Yeah. So whenever, March of last year, when everything started to come about, definitely in the beginning, I was enjoying quarantine. Do not get me wrong. I think we all were. But around that time, I realized that, I was at my heaviest weight. I was not happy where I was at. But more than that, I knew that COVID is serious and it is for people, especially if you have pre-existing health conditions. And so for me, looking at that, I said, I felt in my heart like I don't want to leave my son. And, to most people, like when you're healthy, you're like, oh, it's going to be okay. Most of us, if we get COVID, we're going to be okay. But to me, I realized that, what, I do have pre-existing health conditions. I do have, I am heavier set right now and I am not in my healthiest state of mind. And I wanted to be there for my son and, for the long haul. I think that's what we all want as parents. And so for me, that kind of started to change and shift my thinking. And so in May of last year, I decided I wanted to try Whole30. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to try 30 days of clean eating 100%, and we'll see what happens. And I almost didn't even believe myself that I could even do it because, I tried and failed so many times. And at this point, I had been overweight for almost 4 years. So I didn't have much faith in myself at that point, but I knew I had to try because my son needed me to be around for him in the long haul.
So I talk about this a lot I have with my clients and with people that still follow me. When we have a true transformation, there's a process that takes place. And I just want to outline that and describe it here. There becomes a point where we know what we have to do, right? But the realization of what it's going to take kind of makes us angry, right? But it's that anger that actually, when we turn that around, it becomes our fuel. And it becomes this place of there is no choice. I will not be here for my son. I will not continue to live an unhealthy life. Everybody thinks that it's when you go, oh, I'm going to lose weight. I'm determined to lose weight. I'm going to lose weight. It's not that at all. A true transformation comes, and it often makes us really angry, but that anger is a great place to be because it's when we know we have to move to action. And the true transformation comes when we decide we are not going to be a certain way, or we're not going to have things a certain way anymore. And that's exactly what happened to you. Right? That's why this time was different. And I just want to explain the anatomy of that, because we can actually create that in our life too. If we think about, there's a process to do it. And I work on that in my Crushing It group. There's a process to coming to that point where we can have a true breakthrough. And it also, what you start doing is you start seeing yourself different, right? You start seeing yourself healthy and the things you could do with your son. And I want you to share with people what that process was like for you. I loved hearing you describe this because you didn't know what I'm talking about now, but you did it because this is what happens when you have a true breakthrough.
Yeah. So it all started out slowly, just trying to get my life on track and, starting eating healthier a little bit. But slowly, as the weight started to come off and as I kind of built a momentum up, I started to just kind of visualize what healthy felt like. And it wasn't just, oh, I'm going to lose weight. I think finally having that like almost aha moment of like, I need to get healthy, not I need to look good. And like shifting that thinking really is what propelled me to like stick to it this time. And I would remember like I would be rocking my son to sleep, and in the dark, I would just be thinking about what it would feel like when I was able to chase after him and feel good and move my legs and not feel like I'm, like falling apart at the seams just because I'm overweight anymore. And I remember just every night I would like constantly think about that. And I would think about how good it would feel when, whether it was my next pant size would drop, or, I'd be able to, pick my son up without a struggle, which also total side note, but I didn't realize until much later how hard it was for me to carry my son. I have videos of where I was struggling to pick him up, and then now I can just throw him in the air. And it's such a small little thing that you don't think about in the moment, but it totally was a big deal seeing that months later. So that was a really cool thing to look back on too.
I love the story you described it to me of you would rock your son at night and you were just seeing and pray and envision, with him and over him, how your life would change. And another key component of the transformation that continues and sticks is that you have to know where you're going, and you have to be able to visualize it, envision it, and revisit it every single day. Now, I happen to know that, yeah, you could do that, but that's also the same thing that helped you when it wasn't easy. Because
Absolutely.
it wasn't easy, right? There was things that happened.
Oh yeah. No, and when I had set my 30-day goal to try clean eating for 30 days, I didn't want to tell anybody either, because you don't want to fail again. But I did keep a little letter board, like those cute little black letter boards, and I had a countdown on it. So I would say whole 30 day 1, whole 30 day 10. And that also helped me kind of keep myself going. And even on the days, I wanted to quit, I would look to that board and say, well, I can't quit. I've gone 10 days, I've gone 7 days, whatever it was. And it helped keep me kind of like keep your eye on the prize in that cliche way. So that definitely helped keep that going for me. And then honestly, really like throughout the process, there were so many days where I was just like, well, I could just have wine and pizza. Or I would think about my birthday's coming up, I could just have cake on my birthday. It's fine. I'll be able to go back, that mindset of I can always go back. I can always, one piece of cake won't hurt. But for me, and how I've struggled with food, one piece of cake does hurt, because one piece of cake turns into 2 pieces of cake and so on, So over that course, from the first day, I actually ended up doing 100 days of strict Whole30 clean eating. And throughout that process, even though I wanted to quit many times, I didn't, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm proud of that. But by that 100th day, it was right before my birthday. And I remember, throughout the whole journey, I said, I'm going to have a piece of cake on my birthday. I deserve cake on my birthday. And then my birthday came, and I realized I didn't want cake anymore. I wanted to stay the course and be healthy for my son more than I wanted cake. And that was kind of like another moment for me when I realized this is changing. Like, I am changing for the first time in my life.
I get thrilled just to hear about that process, because you hit on every single thing that it takes to have a true transformation. You decided, even though it made you mad, you envisioned it, you got excited about it, you kept revisiting it, you tracked it, right? You had a plan, a plan that you stuck with. Like, everything that you did is perfect for creating a whole transformation. And what happened was not just your body transformed, but what you just described was you transformed. Now, before we get a little bit more into that, because I know there's more. Oh, and also you had breakdowns. I know you've mentioned this before, but I just want to make it clear that there were many times, like you said, you wanted to eat this, that, or the other, and you would cry, literally cry.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so funny, because in the moment, it feels so embarrassing to be so controlled by something that so many people can just exist with, like, oh, one piece of pizza, no problem. But for me, I wanted a whole pizza. It was a problem. So it's so funny to me that, like, looking back, but I think that's, we all have different things that we struggle with, and mine happens to be food, and there's nothing embarrassing about that. And it's just, I think it's weird talking about at first, but learning that, I don't have to be controlled by it anymore is an amazing thing.
We're going to come back to talking about like how that has changed your relationship with your body in a second, but why don't you just, before we go there, just describe what the Whole30 plan is?
Yeah, so Whole30 is essentially, you're eating 100% clean eating for 30 days. So that means no processed foods, no processed grains, no legumes, no dairy, no gluten, no sugar, no alcohol, nothing. So it's essentially meat, fruits and vegetables. And it's not so much like grilled chicken and broccoli, but it is definitely clean eating. And there's amazing books where they show you different recipes. And of course you can, look different recipes up and you can have fun with it, but it is just a very clean, simple plan.
Did you find substitutions for some of your favorite like go-to foods?
I did over time. So in the process or in the beginning of Whole30, I should say, you're not supposed to recreate things because they want you to disassociate. So for example, a lot of people make banana pancakes and that's a very healthy, like clean way of eating a pancake. However, you're not on Whole30, even though that's technically could be a Whole30 meal. They don't want you to do that because they want you to just disassociate from the foods that have caused you problems in the past. So if, making a banana pancake would trigger you in some way, then they want you to be able to cut those ties.
That makes perfect sense. I love that. So you literally just stuck to complete whole foods.
Yes, and you can absolutely do things like make for example mashed potatoes with like there's a Whole30 recipe, right? So you can do stuff like that, but it was just more like the sweet stuff or the breakfast foods, or like don't go making cookies, even though eventually I learned how to make a very clean almost Whole30 cookie after.
Right. Okay. So that's the plan. It is a very brilliant plan, actually. I mean, if everybody just went to eating whole foods. Did you discover in this process or have you discovered that you have any food sensitivities from some of the foods that you've given up?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely can tell if I accidentally have dairy, like even if it's just as simple as butter. And I'm assuming it's maybe gluten, but I'm not 100% because I haven't gone back to eating these foods, but like every once in a while, like, you'll get a stomach ache from something like if you're eating out, and I can only guess kind of like maybe something was in it.
Right. Okay.
So
cool. Okay. So I think I have this time right. Like there was a time between May, just do this instead of me trying to remember. Talk about, you started March, right? Give us the timeline when you lost how much weight, like go through the process.
Absolutely. So March and last year is when I started thinking about losing weight, like right when COVID hit,
Okay.
but I still definitely for the first probably 2 months of quarantine was just kind of coasting and enjoying, and like we all were. I mean, it was a pandemic, none of us knew what to do. So during that time, just kind of enjoying. And then right after my son's second birthday is kind of when it hit, because I realized like, I loved him and I wanted to spend time with him on his birthday. Absolutely. But I was just tired, I didn't want to be out playing. And I realized how awful, like that made me feel awful because obviously I love my son, but realizing you're too tired almost to play with your child, so that was back in May of 2020. And I started Whole30, I believe it was May 25th. So it's coming up on almost a year of Whole30. And from May 25th to I believe it was September 3rd, so roughly, that was my first 100 days. And in that 100 days, I lost about 40 pounds. And that was strict, just healthy eating, very clean living. And from there, I started to add in a few things like kind of like banana pancakes or learning some paleo dessert recipes for once in a while. And so like, in moderation, of course, it was never every day. And like beginning of September to December, I lost another, I believe, 35 pounds. So, and then slowly over the last few months, I've lost a few more.
So what's your total weight loss to date?
I think it's about 83 pounds.
Okay. And do you have another goal that you're going for? Are you good?
I've thought about that a lot, and I definitely, I thought like I want to lose more weight, but I'm also so comfortable and happy in my own skin where I'm at. I think I just want to lose weight because that's that same wavelength of thinking that I've had in the past. It's not because I need to lose weight. It's not because I'm unhealthy. It's because my brain is trying to convince me that something's wrong with me, when the truth is I'm perfectly great existing in this body and being where I'm at.
I love that because that's a true transformation. So let's talk about there's a perfect lead into the difference about how you see and view your body. So you want to share that with everybody?
Yeah. When I was talking to my mom before this, I was sharing with her that it does break my heart that I couldn't see myself for how amazing I was pre-losing weight. And I think, I think a lot of us have struggled with that, who have struggled with their weight. Of course, we want to lose the weight. We want to be healthy, but there's nothing wrong with where we were at. We weren't any less beautiful. I wasn't any less beautiful. I wasn't any less strong. The same 2 arms that carried my newborn are carrying my toddler now. And just because I lost a little bit of weight doesn't mean I'm any less of, amazing of a mother. But I wish I could have seen that. And I wish that I could have loved myself the way I was and given myself the grace to just exist in the body I was in. And although I didn't do that, and I can only look back on it, I am grateful that I'm comfortable in my skin for the first time in my life, and I'm happy existing. And I have loose skin, I have stretch marks, I have rolls, but I'm amazing, and I can take care of my amazing son, and that's what all this was for.
And it doesn't stop you from dressing the way you want. I got to tell you guys, I don't know if you can tell, but that she told me that when we did a pre-interview, and I'm still, it really chokes me up. Probably because she is my daughter. But I mean, I've always known how amazing she is, but I'm really grateful that she sees how amazing she is now and that she has such a different view of herself. And we're going to talk about the next superficial thing, which is like how she feels about herself and her clothes. And, but it really isn't about that. It's really about this transformation that she's had from the inside out. So I'm going to share about how you feel about it.
Well, I love you, first of all. You're so sweet. You make me want to cry. No, I just like you get choked up with me. Every time I think about my son, like I instantly start tearing up because I understand what that's like. We just want the best for our kids. And although it can sound really superficial, this whole journey, just losing weight and getting, prettier and skinnier and all these things, like, although, yes, sure, that feels great and it does help your confidence, it wasn't just that for me. And I'm not going to be very eloquent in explaining this, but it was so much more. I wanted so desperately to be happy and fulfilled, and food wasn't doing that for me anymore. It never really was, but like you can push it down for so long. And my son was starting to, like I said, he just turned 2. He was starting to understand and see, and he would be able to tell, he'll tell me, "Mommy, sad? You sad?" He can tell, he can pick up on things. And I knew that I needed to be better and do better for him. And so that was so important to me, to become the mother he deserves. And throughout losing weight, I found myself feeling more confident and more joyful. And it was partially because I could move my body better and I felt more comfortable, and losing weight doesn't hurt. It really helped. And I do feel like I'm in a healthier place, but mentally and emotionally, I have the capacity to be what he needs now. And that was what that was all about for me.
Well, I'm going to take it one step further. What we put in our body affects how we think, how we feel, how we act. And not only are we heavier, we have less energy, but it also literally affects how our brain works, which anybody who follows me knows that's what I'm all about. We've got to put the good stuff in to feed that microbiome so our brain works better. So you truly are more joyful. And it's not just because you lost weight, it's because your microbiome's happier. All right. So we try to keep these to about 30 minutes, but I want to wrap it up with you just sharing like some of the things that your swaps, like your healthier swaps, like some of the tricks and tips from that perspective. Give some practical application here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I definitely think, and again, I'm definitely an advocate for Whole30. My sister-in-law introduced me to it a couple of years ago, and honestly, I'm so grateful I gave it a try. So thank you, Nicole, for that. I am a fan of, just in the beginning, at least, starting clean, because I do believe cutting out all of those, I guess for lack of better words, like food triggers, if you struggle with food like I have, I think that does help give you kind of a clean slate. But for example, for me, I love carbs. Specifically, I love potatoes. So I would always make, I actually have an air fryer, and I would make my own like cubed potatoes. And that was like a really nice way to give me kind of like French fries or something, bad, but it wasn't bad. And I ate those almost every day while I was on my weight loss journey. So that was a really fun swap.
Potatoes and still lost weight? What?
I know, right? And those were amazing.
Carb afraid people.
I love carbs. So there's no way around that for me. It's sustenance. It helps your brain think. You need it. So I can tell when I haven't had enough carbs in a day, my brain doesn't work. So,
If you don't do it, it's going to convert something else to
exactly.
The brain can get it. Yep.
So that definitely helped give me just something that felt like it was bad, but it wasn't really bad. So I would make those kind of French fries. We would figure out ways to make mashed potatoes. Cauliflower rice, amazing. I love Asian food and stir fries, so we would make a lot of those. Cauliflower rice. Yes, in the beginning, it's not going to feel like rice, but it definitely over time, you get the fill you need from that. And then I actually ended up, after that 100 days, finding a few things that I really enjoyed, like paleo cookies. Like we learned how to make paleo cookies, and not quite Whole30, but very, very close. And those items really helped me on like when I wanted to celebrate a birthday or, coming up with Mother's Day, things like that, like just to have a little something so I could feel included in the celebration. Banana pancakes, again, another great option.
Yeah. Awesome.
But also like having snacks on hand, Lara bars, I would carry fruit with me, and learning and prepping ahead of time, like learning like to meal prep the snacks always helped me so I could carry them with me.
Very important. And probably drinking plenty of water and things like,
Absolutely hydrating. And I love sparkling water, helps a little bit too.
Oh yeah, it does. It does. It gives you a little bit of treat, and it does help you feel
It
more.
does. Well, it makes you feel like you're having something fancy at the end of the day. Like I remember in the very beginning, I would put kombucha or sparkling water in a wine glass so I felt like I was being fancy, even though it was just
Totally about that. And it does make it feels like the same thing. It's amazing.
It does.
It tricks your brain, right?
Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to wrap that up. I want to, before I close, I want you to give one piece, one nugget, one thing, one jewel you think is the most important thing you could share with everybody here today.
Oh, putting me on the spot a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, my biggest takeaway from my own journey is that I wish I could have loved myself where I was at, and I wish I could have given myself grace. And hindsight's 2020. You can only do so much with what you know, as we kind of said in the beginning. So I'm grateful for where I'm at. I'm grateful for how happy and comfortable I am in my skin, but you don't have to lose weight to be that way. You don't have to, but if you can transform your thinking and give yourself grace ahead of time, then you will be happier than people that can lose 100 pounds. And I wish I could have done that. And that's what I hope I can teach my kids, and I can, help others to know, is that you're perfect the way you are, and you don't need to lose weight to transform. You can transform your thinking and be okay exactly as you are.
Beautiful. All right. So, and my big takeaway is going to be, if you want to learn how to create a true breakthrough, you can do that. And I highly suggest that you go follow my YouTube channel. There is a whole series of videos on there. Plus, we have a Facebook group called Crushing It 2021. And there is the anatomy of how to create an actual breakthrough. You don't have to wait. Most of the time we wait for something tragic or something to happen before we transform. We don't have to. We can create that on our own. So if you're here on YouTube and you want to learn how to create transformation in your own life, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the like button and the notification button. And then go to the playlist, to all the Crushing It 2021, join the group. Thank you for being here. Rowan, thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story. I'm very impressed and very proud of you, but I always have been. But I know it wasn't easy to do what you've done. And it's a great inspirational story for others. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You. Thanks for being here, everybody. Take care. See you soon.